Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Is the Ohio train derailment, chemical spill, explosion, fire, and everything that's happened since then, is it all a PsyOp? Now, I know that many of you are going to explode. Your minds just blew. What in the world is this man talking about? Doesn't he know that all of this destruction is happening and he thinks it's all fake? I didn't say that it was fake, but I do believe that there's a PsyOp being played out. This is something that's been on my mind for the last few days, watching things transpire online due to what's happened 2 weeks ago in Ohio that all of you know about. I mean, I'm sure the whole world knows about it. And I've been researching and looking to other people like myself and that have bigger channels and bigger reach to see if they're saying the same thing, and I'm seeing nothing. But hear me out, folks, because I think that there's a lot more at play here than just simply a train derailment gone bad. Because I think that there's just more to it. Before I get that going, I do want to remind the local folks that our local meeting is this Sunday. So if you're wanting to attend this Sunday, February the 19th, same time, same place as always, should be a very good meeting talking about property, security, and defense. So make the trip and the meeting if you're able to. But moving on, folks, to start this off, I want to first start with something that's not the Ohio thing, to kind of set the stage for what I want to talk about. Because remember, folks, all the world is a stage. If you go to the World Economic Forum, yes, those folks that want to rule the world, right? I mean, Klaus Schwab, I said this morning, you can watch the video floating around online that they want to be masters of the world, okay? That's not a big surprise. We all know that. Well, this past January, they had their annual Davos meeting. And the big hot topic seemed to be at the Davos meeting was disinformation, and how it's so critical to take care of disinformation, and how it's so important to combat it, and that it is one of the greatest threats to our society. As you can see here in this article, that the World Economic Forum lists it as one of the top threats to the world. There's all kinds of stuff. Here's another article that just came out a couple of days ago by the World Economic Forum that saying that disinformation could reshape the risk of post-disaster civil unrest, okay? So there's more to that. Then also today, the New York Times is running this article called Chernobyl 2.0. Ohio train derailment spurs wild speculation. It says here, after a train carrying toxic material derailed in Ohio this month, right-wing commentators have been particularly critical of the response, using the crisis to sow distrust about government agencies and suggest that the damage could be irreparable. Going back to the World Economic Forum meeting just a month ago, there was, it was a pretty hot topic of disinformation and how dangerous it is. In fact, here's a video here I'm going to show you of Senator Joe Manchin, and he's talking about how the First Amendment, freedom of speech is, well, it's just kind of dangerous, and we need to kind of revisit this concept. So watch here.
The problem that we have is the open press system and basically all the platforms. So if you're able to have 5 platforms, social platforms, that you can basically personify the extremes, somebody who is extremely right or extremely left, and it seems like that is the majority speaking. They're not the majority, but they're basically driving everybody to make a decision. What side are you on? Are you on this side or this side? And in America, there's only one side, the American side. It's not the Republican side or Democrat. We should be coming together to solve the problems from a different angle.
He wasn't the only one talking about this at the Davos meeting. Here's another American former commentator. What's his name? I can't remember, from CNN. It doesn't matter. It's got his name there on the little screen. You'll be able to see it. You all know who he is. Anyways, he's saying the same thing, that disinformation is dangerous. It's a threat. It's not good. Listen here what he has to say.
How does this discussion of disinformation relate to everything else happening here today in Davos?
This question of disinformation
I think it maps basically to every other major challenge that we are grappling with as a society, and particularly the most existential among them. So disinformation and the broader set of misinformation, conspiracy, propaganda, clickbait, the broader mix of bad information that's corrupting the information ecosystem. What it attacks is trust. And once you see trust decline, what you then see is societies start to fracture. And so you see people fracture along tribal lines.
And in this next video clip, there's another person here at the Davos World Economic Forum meeting, basically somehow saying that that hate speech in the First Amendment, it's going to change, that they suspect that hate speech will become illegal in the United States, even though we have the First Amendment. See what she has.
Qualifies as hate speech, as illegal hate speech, which you will have soon also in the US. I think that we have a strong reason why we have this in the criminal law. We need the platforms to simply work with the language and to identify such cases. The AI would be too dangerous.
All right, are you kind of catching the drift here? I'm trying to set the stage that there is already been this this mission statement, so to speak, that they want to combat disinformation, all right? So let's take that. That's a little data point. We're going to put that up on the shelf. And now we're going to talk about the actual train thing that's happening. Again, I am not saying for one moment that there wasn't a train derailment. I'm not saying for one moment that there wasn't a catastrophic spill and a catastrophic fire, and that there isn't possibly contaminants leaking. That's not what I'm saying, so stick with me. What I am saying is that in the last week, we have seen what I believe, just based on online perception, and if you watched the video yesterday or so, I said perception is probably more important than reality in this game. When you're dealing with psychological warfare, the perception is way more than reality. So the perception online right now seems to be in the last week is that there's nothing more important in the world than the Ohio train derailment and the debacle that's happening. The cover-up, the lying, that people are going to die, that it's bigger than a nuclear bomb. It's Chernobyl. They've nuked the area, and it's people and animals and everything's dying. And the other side is saying, no, nothing happened. It's not a big deal. I mean, I'm a resident of Ohio, and nothing's going on here. We tested all the water in the air, and everything's good to go. I don't know what you're talking about. And so we're seeing just a lot of chatter. In fact, I don't know that I've seen this much internet intensity and energy over one single subject, maybe ever. Probably the closest comparison would be the whole shot in the arm thing, But that even, I don't know if that even compares to this. There is a lot of intensity and chatter. Virtually every YouTuber, every conservative right-wing news personality, online, on Twitter, on Fox News, on YouTube, everywhere. They're talking about this, and they're talking it up big. That right there tells me that something's up. That when there's that much intensity, it doesn't mean that the whole incident isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't mean that it is that big of a deal. It's just unusual that this was the one hill that some people seem to want to die on. And maybe it's just because they're so fed up and tired of everything else that's happened, or maybe there's something else going on. Looking through and reading so many comments because, if you asked my wife, she'll tell you, the last several days I've kind of been obsessed with this one thing, and I've fought back and forth with myself of even to bring it to you, but I think that it's something that's necessary because I believe in my heart something is going on here, and it's not just the fact that there was a train derailment and a cover-up and that people may or may not get sick, or there may or may not be an ecological disaster here. I think that there's something else going on. In all the comments and all the things that's being shared around with this, through all the truth, I think there is some misinformation being sent. I'm seeing people share things and say things about it that are quite extreme and most likely not true. People saying things that absolutely aren't true, making claims to stuff that just it's not really possible for it to happen. Not just about this, but about several other things. And there's a beginning to see major arguments and fights, and people just, they're so passionate about that they know that this is what's going on. Again, I'm not saying that nothing's going on or that it's not a big deal. I'm saying that I'm starting to see things kind of play out online because of this. And what I suspect is that we're eventually going to see, at some point, the powers that be say, see what happened with this? See what happened with this Ohio thing? It got out of control. You know, we used to have control over Twitter, and Elon Musk bought it, and they just kind of let it open and let it be crazy. And see what happens when you don't control misinformation. Because that's exactly what they're saying already. Here's one from Media Matters. Right-wing media weaponize the East Palestine train derailment to claim white conservatives are being persecuted. Oh, there's one. Here's the one from New York Times. I already mentioned that. Chernobyl 2.0 train derailment spurs wild speculations. Here's something I thought was interesting. This article here talking about how Chinese nationalists are echoing American right-wing conspiracies on UFOs and Ohio's toxic train derailment. If you read the article, it's talking about how it's interesting that in China that the Chinese nationals and the CCP and their little WeChats and all that kind of stuff, they're saying the same kind of stuff as the right-wing conspiracy theorists here in the United States are saying. And so what I suspect is that they're, again, capitalizing on something. Was this train derailment an accident? Was it just simply equipment failure? Was it because of poor maintenance? Maybe. It could have been all those. Could it be that someone actually purposely sabotaged the train and caused it to happen? Very possible. I think anything at this point is on the table. I've not seen enough conclusive evidence of anything to point directly at one particular thing. So at this point, I'm still open to stuff. The same way with the level of disaster this is. There's a lot of speculation going on, and there's very little concrete data that's being presented by anyone on any side. And that's just the truth of it, folks. It's just the truth of it. I've seen people make pretty intelligent comments that say, in the day and age with all the video and the camera and the cell phones and stuff, why are we not seeing more footage, current footage in the last few days from this area? What's going on? Where's the sick people? The governor's office claims that they've had 0 reports of any illnesses or injuries because of this. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm saying that there's a lot of very polarizing, dividing information being put out on this one. And it's actually quite intense. In fact, in doing this channel, making these videos, one of the things that I do every day is set aside a little time to just go through my different sources, trying to find out what's going on in the news, to see if there's anything worthy of talking about in a video. And in the last few days, I've had a real hard time finding anything else in the news. Like I have to really dig for it, because the vast majority of things being talked about is this thing in Ohio. And it's not because it's not important, but it's also maybe not the only important thing going on. I suspect, again, that there's some type of plan, some type of plot, some type of, and I know I'm going off on my own conspiracy here, shall we say a PsyOp, being played out to expose the right-wing conspiracy theorists for the disinformation artists that they are. In the end, what will the truth be of this? Who knows? We may never know. Maybe it's not as bad as what they're saying it is. Maybe it's worse. Maybe it's somewhere in between, which is usually where the truth tends to lie. I'm not saying don't pay any attention to this, folks. I'm not saying that it's not newsworthy. I'm not saying that all the information that's being spread around it is lies and disinformation. I'm saying be cautious. because I have. My wife has been assisting me in the last 3 days. And we've been doing lots of research in things that people are saying, and several things that are being spread around have been, as best as we can determine, proven to us at least, untrue. And so there is a lot of disinformation, and there's a lot of cover-up, and there's a lot of lies, and there's a lot of untruths being spread. And so because of the intensity of this one issue, online, and the amount of emotional reaction that I'm seeing, which I think it's astonishing why there's so much emotional reaction. Not saying it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but there's been a lot of reaction to this. And because of that, I tend to think that there's something else going on. And I think, again, this whole plan that's been talked about for months now, that we have to crack down on the right-wing disinformation artists, and here this one thing is just exploding on the internet, and already they're coming out and saying it's all being done by disinformation conspiracy theorists. So where will this lead us? I don't quite know yet, but I suspect as the dust starts to settle, we may possibly start seeing people, whether they be in, politically influencing type of positions or political power, government officials, someone start to step in and say this has to be fixed. I mean, the United Nations has already stated in the recent months that they want to start issuing whatever authority they have, which is not really much, to try to get countries, states to clamp down on disinformation that's being spread around, because that's the biggest threat to the world, according to the World Economic Forum. So I think we should be cautious of this and be wary of it. And if, in fact, I'm correct on this, and if there is a type of PsyOp being played out on both sides, then we have to be cautious of the information out there. And just because it comes from someone that you know and think that you can trust doesn't mean that it's necessarily accurate. You should do your best to do your own research and check things out, and don't just take something because it seems sensational. It seems it's an emotional reaction that looks bad. That really looks bad. Well, is it bad? Is it or is it not? And that's something that we should be cautious of what we jump on. Again, doesn't mean it didn't happen, and I'm sure it has caused some major environmental problems. But I think there are certain people in this world that are taking advantage of this situation and are going to end up weaponizing it and using it against us to spread disinformation, to spread discontent and distrust, because that is their goal in the end, so that they can wage their total takeover. Much like what I talked about this morning in the video, where a World Government Summit said that they have to create a shock, a major shock to the system for people to accept this new world order. Folks, this is what we're dealing with, and it's time that we get ourselves prepared, both in all ways, mentally, physically, and spiritually, because they're coming at us in ways that you can't imagine. Folks, get your houses in order. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.